Hi everyone, my name is Joy Charles. I love the presence of God, His Word, prayer, and experiencing the Holy Spirit. Today, I want to share with you some of the experiences I've had with God, how He has walked with me throughout my life, and how His direction and providence has shown up for me when I needed it. And the same way He has walked with me, He can walk with you if you let Him. My parents were not religious. They went to church maybe only once or twice a year. When I was 5 years old, a neighbor started taking me to their church's Sunday school, where they led me to memorize John 3:16. Little did I know how important this minor event would become in my life. In my early 20s, a friend of mine started to talk to me about Jesus, but I was not interested. I was having a great time, and I had already heard all the rumors and reasons why the Bible was unreliable, full of mistakes, and had been changed. And I believed it. It made sense to me. So one day as I was driving home from work, all of a sudden, I saw that a Bible verse had been painted on a large wall. In gigantic letters was John 3:16, and it hit me like a punch in the face because it was so sudden. And the moment I read that verse, it just like went into my spirit, and it touched something that I knew was back there. And all of a sudden, I remembered the church from when I was a little girl. And while I had forgotten about it, and I had forgotten about the scripture long time ago, just seeing the scriptures so large and so unexpectedly shook my soul and instantly dug up all those long lost memories of being in this church as a 5-year-old. It was very unsettling for days because the spiritual impact was strong, and I didn't know why I was responding so strongly to this thing. And for days I kept thinking, what does this mean? Why was this still affecting me when it was something that happened when I was a child and it was a Bible verse? It was very unsettling for days. Remember, I had come to believe the lie that the Bible had errors and had been changed. So I shook the whole experience off and continued my clueless life. I just continued because that made sense to me. That made sense to me. Then God, little by little, and that just shows me the love of God that He had for me. He wouldn't allow me to be lost because of ignorance or because of not understanding. What God began to do, as I began to piece things together later in my life, when I understood more and knew more, God began to surround me with sweet people from different churches, different denominations, and also from a couple of cults, okay? I didn't know that at the time because I didn't have any understanding, but now I realize God was just pushing me into thinking. He would present situations that caused me to think about certain things at the time, to reason through certain things, to face the reality of certain things. And so God began to surround me with some people from different denominations and cults who would insistingly, they insisted, to invite me to their church. So they would insist, they were like, you need to know God. And they would come and tell me this. And I'm like, no, I don't. I already know everything I need to know. So many people were talking to me. And later I realized this was God sending people to talk to me. I decided that I needed to prove to them that the Bible was full of errors, because that's what I believed. That's what I'd heard. It made sense to me, and I had come to believe that. So I decided I needed to prove to them that the Bible was full of errors and had been changed. So I went to a Christian bookstore and bought myself a Bible I could understand. My plan was to read the Bible for myself and find these places in the Bible where the supposed errors were, because I hadn't read it before. And I felt like this would be a great opportunity, because I'm motivated by all these wonderful people around me that I really thought they were wonderful. I needed to bring them to reality. I needed to make an effort to explain to them why why this whole thing is not really true. So my plan was to read the Bible for myself, find these places in the book where the supposed errors were, make a list, and let these people see how ridiculous the whole thing is. For them to be so believing in such things, it was really ridiculous. As some of you may be guessing by now, of course, I did not find those alleged passages of contradictions. I started reading the Bible from Genesis and read all the way through Revelation, all the way to the end, to Revelation. It took me about 1.5 years, okay? So every night I would read the Bible. And thinking about it makes me laugh. I would read the Bible because I started in Genesis, and of course you come with all the laws and all these things, and it's a different mindset, a different world, and we were living in the modern world, and I was like, I don't agree with this, I don't want to read anymore, and then I would close my Bible and just go to sleep. But the next night I would be sitting and reading my Bible because I wanted to get this thing done. So after work, after gotten everything ready, and I was getting ready to go to bed, I would pull out my Bible and I would read with a notebook so that I could write down the errors and the mistakes and where they were located, so that I could create some form of presentation or way of presenting the reality, right? What I thought was the reality to them. So it's amazing how God works, Even when I'm speaking about it, I'm like, man, this is strategy. God knows how to reach people, because here I am today serving God, telling other people about the Bible. God has a sense of humor. So, these passages were simply not there. These things that were so full of errors and all this stuff, they were simply not there. But I did unexpectedly notice something completely different. As I read, and I continued, so I was reading every night, and I would stop and get frustrated, and because I had a mission. This is my mission. I need to let people know that this is, not something they want to follow. And because we live in a modern world, then the old rules and regulations seem ridiculous to us. And I would get angry because I felt, oh, this is unfair. This is not good. And I, when it became too much for me, I would just stop reading and I would go to bed. But as I continued reading, I began to realize one particular thing that kept coming up into my mind time after time after time, no matter how many times I would get frustrated at reading a particular scripture. But this theme would return. And I began to realize that people's hearts, thoughts, tendencies and reactions were the same. Way back when, thousands of years ago, or in the modern world where I lived today. They were the same. In the ancient world or in the modern world. The only difference I realized that we now had is that instead of going around on donkeys and camels and horses, we now went around in cars, on bicycles, motorcycles, trucks, buses. Maybe the houses that we live in today, we live with a lot more comfort. We live with a lot more space, where back then, if you were a simple person, your house was simpler. So I realized that we were similar. Humanity had not changed. We were still afraid, whether you lived back then or you live today, we were still afraid of the same things. And we still had the same hopes and the same dreams. That's what began to surface the more I read the Bible. The difference. That, yes, there was a difference, but the difference was superficial. The similarities were at a much deeper level. We were still afraid of the same things and still had the same hopes and dreams. Times had changed, but the human nature hadn't. We still had the same responses to certain situations. I would read situations in the Bible and I was like, yeah, I can see how that would happen. I can see because I would do this, or this thing happened, or I experienced something or saw something with somebody and that's what happened. That's how their thinking went. I began to see clues that told me, wait a minute, this is like a real life story. This is not a fantasy. I wasn't reading a novel. I used to read novels. I used to read fantasy stories. I know they're like, oh, everything is so perfect. No, the Bible is not like that. Things are messed up in the Bible. And they match our lives as we live as human beings upon this earth. That was an eye-opener for me, because I was not expecting that. Times had changed, but human nature hadn't. It was still the exact same thing. The teachings of the Bible were still applicable today. I began to notice, because I then began to walk around, and as I'm going through life and things are happening, I'm beginning to connect my experiences and things that I'm going through, or things that I'm doing, or things that I'm thinking, or reactions that I see. I'm beginning to connect them with stories I had read in the Bible. And I'm like, what? That makes sense. That makes sense. That makes sense. That makes sense. Because as human beings, this is who we are. This is what we do. But what really sealed the deal for me, because up until then, it's, I'm surprised. I'm amazed that the Bible is not really it wasn't disconnected at all from reality the way I thought it was. I thought it was disconnected, maybe a few things here and there, but it wasn't disconnected. Everything, I began to see the logic in it. But what really sealed the deal for me is that one day, out of nowhere, and totally unexpectedly, God spoke to me in an audible voice. Now, when I say audible, I don't mean audible in this world. In my head, it sounded audible, like it was real. And it was loud, It was clear. And I was shocked. I was so shocked. When he spoke to me. I was shocked. And we had a very short conversation, really. I think it was about 3 minutes, maybe 2 minutes. I had been working as an executive assistant at this organization. And because of my position as an executive assistant, I was supporting the top, the leadership. That was my job, to support and, to be the intermediary and whatnot. And there was, working there, all of us who work there, without thinking, you do things in this world without really thinking because everybody does it. And working there, if I needed a pen, because everything at my desk was mine. My computer was mine, my paper is mine, because I need them for my work. I'm using them for my work. But here's what would happen. That I never thought about it because everybody did it. It was a normal thing, basically. I mean, we expected the people to do it as leaders, as people up there. We knew that people would take pencils, pens, whatever, paper, but it's okay, right? You just calculate it into the cost of things because they're working. And so if they want to take a pencil home, it's not considered anything big or. But that day, when God spoke to me, here's what was happening. I was getting ready to go home. And as I normally did, sometimes I would forget to go and I didn't have the time to go to the store to buy a set of pens or paper or whatever I needed for the house. And then sometimes when I needed to, I would just take my pen from my desk. Maybe some paper, maybe some envelopes, whatever I needed. Not much, just, maybe a pen, maybe a piece of paper, maybe an envelope, but not like stacks of stuff, right? And I would just go home and use it until I had a chance to get to the bookstore or to to the office place to buy the things that I needed. And I just picked up the pen. I had everything cleaned up, and I thought, oh, I need a pen. I need a pen because I'm out of ink with my pens, and I need to go and get new pens. So I picked up a pen. I didn't pick up 5, 10. I didn't take a whole pen. I picked up a pen as I had done thousands of times before. I pick up the pen and I put it in my purse. And that's when the voice came. And this is what the voice, it was loud, not angry. It wasn't an angry voice. It was loud, but calm. Imagine that. It was loud, but calm. And it said, simple question. What are you doing? And it sounded so clear. I started looking up. I'm like, where did that voice come from? And I'm looking around. There's nobody around me. And I remember I'd been reading this Bible every single night. Sometimes I'm angry when I finish. Sometimes I'm okay and I'm happy and I continue reading. But I'm like, wait a minute. The voice, and I remember things from the Bible. I'm like, is this God? Is this God? And I'm like, so he asked me, what are you doing? And in the amazement and the wonder of it all, I was like stuttering, I'm taking a pen. And then God answers, is it yours? And up to that moment, it never occurred to me that the pen might not be mine because it is in my desk. It is part of my working tools. It is mine. I have always considered the things that I took to my desk to use for work, they are mine. And all of a sudden, after he said, is it yours? My spirit, not my mind, not my personality, my spirit. And that's when I was like, whoa, where did this thought come from? My spirit said, no. My spirit. The world says yes. My carnal mind says yes. My thinking says yes. My habits say yes. My custom says yes. But my spirit said no. And then I realized, wait a minute, there's more than just my mind in there. There's more than just my earthly thinking. There is a deeper me inside of me. A deeper me inside of me. And at that time I hadn't reached the New Testament yet. So I didn't understand the whole thing with the spirit and the body and that kind of stuff. But I knew there was something. I knew there was something. And so after I began to realize, wait a minute, okay, so this is not mine. I said, no, it's not mine. He says, God says, then why are you taking it? And I just took the pen and put it back there. I'm like, you know what? I'm going to drive to the bookstore when I leave here, to the office supply store when I leave here. I'm going to buy my own pencil, get my own things. And from then on, I never took anything. And if I did, I would ask. And I remember the first time I asked the head of the office supplies things, he looked at me and he said, of course, everybody does it. I said, no, I just wanted to make sure, but I couldn't do it anymore. I had changed. I could not do it anymore. We had a very short yet highly impacting conversation, God and I, that day. And that was my first time hearing his voice. And it came so suddenly and so unexpectedly. It shocked me. I mean, the feeling of shock in my inner being stayed with me for days. To make a long story short, I ended up accepting Jesus Christ as my Savior about a year later in 1985. And I have been joyfully serving him ever since. Joyfully serving him with excitement, happiness, seeing him work, how in the way God works. You know, we can't understand it with our logical perspective. No, God has a way of working with things and it defies logic. It's like with God, up is down and down is up. It's like when you think that you should be doing something this way, no, with God he shows you, no, it's this way. And you're like, yeah, but that is so counter. And when you do it, it works out perfectly. Better than you can imagine. Everything I have achieved is because of God's love and faithfulness. By myself, I would not have been able to accomplish any of those things. The great things that I've achieved. Maybe I could do the basic everyday things, but a lot of things were just amazing and I would not have been able to do them by myself. I can tell you this for sure. I am definitely not the smartest. I work hard. Okay, I work hard. I take a lot of time to learn things because I am not the smartest. I have to pay attention to things. It takes me hours to learn something, but I am determined to learn. I am like, I need to be able to do this well. I want to do everything that I do well, not just haphazardly. I want to do it well, and I want it to be something that is beneficial to other people who need to use it or need to do it or need to work with whatever I finished. So I'm definitely not the smartest, but I want to do my best to deliver something that is helpful and productive, right? I'm not the fastest. Never been fast. My things are kind of slow. I'm slow because it takes me time to figure things out. I'm not the strongest or the healthiest. I used to get sick really easily, and even now, I have to consider my health sometimes. Nor am I the most courageous. I don't get myself into things that could be a problem, that could be dangerous. Never been that way. I've always been very cautious. So I'm not really the most courageous to say, hey, I'm going to go and do something. Not me. Not me. Neither am I the most self-confident. I am too aware of my shortcomings, aware of my weaknesses, aware of things that I have done wrong, that I am ashamed of or feel bad for doing. I'm not the most self-confident because I see the mistakes I make. I understand where I should have done something better if I knew how to do it, if I'd known how to do it better, right? Because I don't always know. So because I don't always know, I have never seen myself as confident, even though people have looked at me and they are like, you're so confident. No, I'm confident when I know what I'm doing. I'm confident when I understand the mechanics around it. I'm confident about that, but I'm not generally, I have to prove to myself that I can be confident about things. That's kind of how it works. I'm not just confident because I think I'm so great. No, I have to prove to myself, did I do, and I have to consistently see that, because at any moment you can do something really wrong if you're too overconfident. So I'm not the most confident. I see my shortcomings, and that has been, something that I know for me has helped me to stay cautious. And the other thing is, I'm not really the best at anything. I'm very good at a lot of things, but I'm not the best at anything. Being good at many things is better than not being good at anything. Being the best at one thing is amazing. But I am okay with being good at many things, even though I may never be the best at one thing, right? The other thing is, I do not have a high-level college degree. I don't have a high-level college degree. I do not have a PhD or a master's. I do not even have a bachelor's degree. I have a 2 years associate's degree. That's it. It's not much. It's just a little above high school. Graduated high school and got into a 2 years associate's degree program. Succeeded, and I started working, and I got great jobs. Part of it is because my language skills were so good. I speak different languages, and that was because I was raised in different countries. So, I had to. It wasn't like I was particularly fantastic at it. It just, life took me there. So, yet God, I see these things and I realize, yet God, He chose to set me before princes and kings. And I'm going to tell you more about that. And that is the thing that I never expected to experience. But He chose to set me before princes and kings to testify about Him. And this is wonderful because He does that in the Bible. He sets people before princes and kings, makes them their servants. And then you have an opportunity to show them who God is. If He can do it for me, because he didn't just do it for Daniel, He didn't just do it for Joseph, He didn't just do it for Nehemiah, He did it for me too. And I am a nobody. And if he can do it for me, he can do it for anyone. He can do it for you. He can definitely do it for you. He can help you to live and do more than your natural knowledge could take you. While I was living, I became a missionary and ended up living in Brazil. While I was living in Brazil, so I went to Bible college, and while I and graduated from Bible college, and while I was living in Brazil, I did mention that. I just mentioned that I was a missionary in Brazil. While I was living in Brazil, he pulled me out of full-time missionary service, right? Because I was working with many churches, different denominations, working on educational programs and that kind of stuff. And for a few years, he placed me in a diplomatic position, representing a senator of my country in the top echelons of a world government organization. Now, I had read many times through the scriptures, through the book of Revelation, and also scriptures in the Old Testament about the end times and that kind of stuff. But I had read a lot in the book of Revelation, and I thought, you know what, this is where the world government is going to go. In my mind, I never really thought about working in any of those organizations. But one day he had started presenting the opportunity to me, because a senator of my country, he would come and he kept asking, he would visit Brazil to work at this organization, and while he was there, he would come and visit me on the mission field. He would come, visit me, take some time, visit me, and I could see my best friend, who was his daughter. Anyway, and so and I'm thinking, with the list of thousands of Ivy League educated people vying for these kinds of positions, why did he come to me? And he did tell me the one thing. He says the most important thing that he wanted from me, he says, is my ability to understand people, my ability to understand cultures, and my language skills. He needed my language skills because it's an international organization, and there was nobody who had the level of language skills that I had at the time. And they were having this huge summit with all the heads of state from the Americas and Europe, and there was nobody who could really do enough languages to help him to walk with him. So only through a divine appointment did I get this. That's how I got in. Only through divine appointment. Because God had decided that this is what he wanted me to do. But I didn't know that at the time when he was asking me about it. When he started asking me to accept this position, I was like, I'm a missionary. I'm a missionary. This is what I chose to do. This is how I chose to live my life. There must be somebody else that you want for this position. And he's like, no, there is nobody else I want for this position. I know you. I know where you come from. I know who you are. I trust you. I want you. God himself wanted me there, and put my name on his heart. And I realized that God wanted me there because I'm not going to go into it today on this video, but a series of events happened that made me realize that if I did not take this position, it was I would end up disobeying God. God wanted to achieve something and I would end up disobeying God. Because things happen and I realized, wait a minute, am I doing what God wants me to do? And then churches that were praying for me, they were like, are you sure? God is telling us that you need to do something else. God is telling us that you need to do something else. And I'm like, oh my goodness. So I finally prayed and asked God, what do you want me to do? And he said, take the job because it's yours. So I took the job. God wanted me there. And he put my name on this leader's heart. And I knew. So I took the job. I left the mission field, took the job. And all of a sudden, I find myself, of course, fraternizing. With leaders. And walking in and out of world summits. Fraternizing with world leaders and walking in and out with out of world summits, and dealing with Interpol and dealing with National Guards. And oh my goodness. So I often felt like Joseph, honestly. I felt like Joseph. I felt like Daniel in the Bible. Receiving, because I felt like God was giving me supernaturally an understanding of things that I knew nothing about. He would put thoughts in my mind, and in the beginning, I would struggle with these thoughts because I'm like, why am I thinking this? I don't know anything about this, and I don't know anything about my insecurities. I don't know anything about this and anything about that. But then it would stay, and I would know without a shadow of a doubt, okay, this is what God, I need to say this thing. And then I would figure out a way to say it because I wasn't sure. Not because God wasn't giving me a sure message, but I was still thinking, well, what if I'm wrong? What if I'm wrong? I had to learn how to walk with God and how to trust God's directions. And then I would figure out a way to say it, and then it would always be right. And people would be surprised. And to them, they thought I had uncommon wisdom and insight. And I knew nothing. I knew absolutely nothing. I was just following what God was putting in my head. This is how God can guide us through life. This is what we need to aspire. We need to aspire to have a relationship with God that is so intimate that you know when he speaks, that you know that you're fighting God. You know that you're having difficulty believing this, but you know because you've had other experiences with God before. And it's a beautiful place to be. It's a beautiful place to be. God taught me during that job things that I had never had the opportunity to learn. He would just put them in my head. And my colleagues, they would say, you're brilliant. They thought I was brilliant. And at a certain point, when I had the opportunity to share God with them, I began to teach them that, no, God gives us insight and wisdom into things that we don't particularly know. And it was wonderful when the time came, to share with them. It was wonderful because they had had 2 years to experience me doing my job, seeing how I function, and gaining respect for who I was as a person by things that they saw, how they saw I responded to things. I didn't have the regular political response, I didn't go into groupies, and I wasn't looking to be friends with this and that. I just wanted to do my job. I wanted to do what was right and what was fair. And that was that. Whatever God put me to do there, I need to do that. I don't need to come here and try to make friends with all the, I will talk with you and I will appreciate you, but I'm not going to enter into no kind of deals just because I want to keep you as a good contact. No, ain't going to happen. Wasn't going to happen. Didn't happen. So I realized that I had an unfair advantage. One that could beat any college degree any day of the week and twice on Sunday. I had an intimate friendship with the one who knows all things. And he was with me, instructing my mind. He was instructing my mind, and he was directing my speech, my words. He would give me the words to say. He would tell me when to shut up. He would tell me when to speak. He would tell me what to say. He made me look good. I was scared because when I took the job, because I felt like I don't have any training for this. But you know, with God, when you have God, you have all the wisdom and understanding and knowledge of the world in your reach, because God lives inside you and he has all that. He will just release it into your brain when you need it. Eventually some of my highly educated colleagues did begin to ask how such an intelligent woman like myself could possibly believe in fairy tales like God. And I had the opportunity to share with them some of my many personal experiences with God. Soon after that, I couldn't walk the hallways of the organization, at the level where my office was, because my office was at the top level. And I couldn't walk through the hallway of the top level without the workers, the secretaries and the executive assistants and the people who worked at the top, without them coming, Joy, we have a question. And they would start asking me questions about life and I was like, wow, it never occurred to me that God might want me to reach people there when I got the first offer. It never occurred to me that God had a plan in such a world organization, in such a place where everything is very worldly, right? But there were people who began to ask me questions. I couldn't walk the hallway without them asking me questions. And then I realized, okay, I can't answer all your questions. I'm working. I need to get my job done, And I said, I prayed about it. I'm like, God, what am I going to do? And I realized the only thing I could do is teach a Bible study at my house. So then I decided I'm going to open up my home to all these people I work with, and I'm going to have a Bible study at my home. So the next time I went back and I said, wait, I cannot talk, but would you like for me to give a Bible study at my home? You can come you can come to my home and we can talk about anything you want to talk about. And they were like, really? And then the next question was, can I bring my husband? Can I bring my mother? Can I bring my sister? Can I bring my friend? And I'm like, you can bring anybody you want to. Anybody you want to. And so they came to my home Bible studies with their families and their friends. And most received Christ as their personal Savior. And I will never forget. So here I'm sitting, and I'm just sitting looking around my house and seeing my home filled with these people who had so many questions about the Bible, and they had never met anybody who could tell them these things, who could answer their questions. They had questions. And so one of them eventually said, I think that God brought you here to save us. And when I heard that, the impact of why God had taken me there really hit home. Because I thought, I'm going to testify, just share my testimony and let them know about Jesus. But they were saved, and they felt like God cared about them enough to send somebody to their workplace where they seldom had time for anything else so that somebody could tell them about Jesus. You know, I still choke up when I remember this. And I think, what would have happened if I had never obeyed God and taken that position? What would have happened if I had taken that position but not really done my best? You know, even though I knew I wasn't trained that way, but God told me, do what you do best. Just do your best. That's it. And the rest, what I did not know, He would always tell me. He would always reveal to me, like He did with Joseph, like He did with Daniel. He would always let me know. And then I began to understand those prophets better. I began to realize, whoa, this is what God did. After working in this position for 3 years, God finally released me and placed me back into full-time ministry. I was finally back in the place I love the most. I was finally back on the mission field. The big lesson I learned is that God's mission field is larger than ours. Who would have thought where God would place me, that an international organization would be an international political organization at that, would be a mission field. We seldom think of places where world powers meet as a mission field. But I can definitely identify with this statement of the Apostle Paul. I know how to be abased, meaning I know how to live with nothing, because as a missionary, you live with nothing. And I know how to abound, to live in wealth, because as a representative at that organization, I lived in wealth. Now, you know, it wasn't something that I was like, ooh, whoa, yeah, you know. I had already made my choice who I was going to serve. I was only there because God told me to go there. And as soon as I had the chance, I left it. As soon as the job was done, I left it. So everywhere and in all things, I have learned both to be full and to be hungry. You know, that's what Paul says, that he has learned to be both full and to be hungry. As a missionary, yeah, I learned to be hungry. I learned to make do with whatever was available. I learned how to live from God's power. As a representative of this organization, I had so much. I mean, I had a chauffeur. I lived in a hotel. Ugh, I mean, it was wealthy. What can I say? And so I learned both you know, like Paul says, we learn how to be full and to be hungry. We learn to both abound and to suffer need. And Paul says, I can do all things through Christ. This is where he says it. I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me. And that is in Philippians. That is in Philippians 4. Philippians 4 verse 12 through 13. I can do all things through Christ who gives me strength, who strengthens me. I continually offer up all my abilities to my Heavenly Father to use as He pleases, because He has developed them in me. He placed these skills and these abilities in me. He is always ready to do great things with all we offer up to Him. Everything that we offer up to Him, He is willing to do great things. Through Christ Jesus, I can boast about the greatness, the goodness, and the faithfulness of my God. This is the God I serve. This is the God, if you are a Christian, this is the God you serve. If you are not a Christian, if you haven't made a decision yet, this is the God you can serve as you are, because he comes and he compliments you. That's what he does. He compliments you. So you look like a level thing, but he fills in the gaps. That's what he does. That's what he's done for me. So sometimes when I tell people, oh, I'm a little bit insecure and I'm not so self-confident, and they're like, what? What are you talking about? You do this, you do that. Yeah, but I do that because God is there. God is with me. He tells me what to do. He tells me what to say. He tells me where to go. And then I have confidence because he is with me. I can't do it just by myself. That's not how it works. Yeah. Through Jesus Christ, I can boast about the greatness, the goodness, and the faithfulness of God Almighty. With God's direction and help, I found myself serving him in many different capacities I had never planned in my life. Okay? I had one idea of how my life was going to go when I was younger. And then when I started living for God and serving God, things just happened. And, let me share with you just a list of some of the things he enabled me to achieve. I did all this with his help, not by myself. The services he equipped me to provide, because he equipped me to provide services to the body of Christ and to the world in general, in whatever capacity I was working or whatever I was doing. It didn't matter. I didn't have to be in a church to be of service to God. He would use me wherever I was. And I love that about serving God. I just love it because the sense of his presence is beautiful and strong. And he gives you courage to face difficulty, to face challenges, to face certain dangers. And he's there. And he gives you the courage. And he lets you know, do not be afraid. I am with you. Just go. Because I'm a scaredy cat. I'm afraid of everything. And when I tell people the life I've led, they're like, oh, you're so bold. No, I'm not. No, I am not. But I have faith in my God. I trust my God. And I decided that whatever God tells me I'm going to do, whether I like it or not, I will have to get over it. I will have to figure out how to align myself with God, because I don't need God to align with me, because I can't do anything. I need to align with God. And he does it. He helps me, he gives me strength, he brings connections. He gives you divine connections, divine insight. It's amazing. I wish more people knew this. I wish more people understand. This is not just for people who are up there preaching the gospel. No, this is for everybody. Because I'm a nobody. Okay? I don't own a church. I might start a ministry sometime, but we'll see. But I'm not anything particular. I was not particularly super intelligent. I just worked very hard. Things that I didn't know, I would repeat until I understood. I still do that. I don't learn things quickly. I'm just very dedicated. That's more of what it is. So I want to share with you the list of things that he enabled me to achieve. The services he equipped me to provide. And the various roles he led me to fulfill, both in my private life and as a minister. Okay, I want you to get an idea of what God can do. because he can use every gift that he has given you. He can bring it out and put it to use. And then you're building this list of abilities and skills that you never really realized that you had until you're going, oh, this is where God is at. Oh, this is where God is. Oh, I didn't know I would be able to do this or do that. So here's my list of things, whether it's for the ministry or in my private life. These are the things that I see that God helped me to achieve and to walk in and to be successful in because I was committed to him. These are the things that I did after I became a believer. And I was interacting with God, and he would tell me what to do and I would obey. He would even when I needed to get a job, like even when I needed to get a job, and I'm thinking, oh, I'm going to go to this employment agency and see what they have. And then God would tell me, no, don't go to that one. Go to the one in that place. And he would tell me exactly where he went. And I'm like, that's so far, but this is so close to my home. If they call me for an appointment, I'm right here. And he's like, no, don't go there. Go to the other one. Go to the other one. I would listen. He's my God. If he's my God, I need to listen to him. So I went there, was a new place, and looking back, I realized it was the best solution because there were so many opportunities there where I fit so perfectly. And I ended up becoming an employment counselor and an employment person specializing in helping employ people. And that was something I had never done before. But turns out I was really great at communicating with them. And I was really great at communicating with the business owners and understanding what they wanted and finding the people that they needed and people that connected with them. And my boss was like, you are so good at this. It gives me the chills. And I was like, wow. I didn't know I could do that. But God knew. And he says, don't go to this one. Go to that one. So instead of being the one who was constantly being sent out, because I had been sent out in the beginning to a radio station, and the radio station wanted to keep me, and the employment agency owner, he says, they're offering this. Do you want to take it? And I'm like, no. And he tried he says, think about it because it's a good offer. And he said, and once I said, he says, is it fine? Are you definitely no? The next day he comes back, he says, okay, now, are you still sure on your no? He says, okay, then I have another offer for you. And I said, yes. He said, but I didn't want to give it to you because I didn't want I didn't want you to pull away from an honest offer that a client had given. He says, but now that we've already given them your answer, he says, now I have another offer. He says, I want you to work for me. I want you to work here for me. And I was like, I've never done this job before. He says, let's take a few months. I said, well, I'm looking for a particular salary but in what I'm good at, I'm not sure if he says, let's take 2 months, 3 months. You work for me for 3 months and we see how it goes. He says, because I wanted the salary, he wanted to pay me less. And I said, okay. I said, but here's what we're going to do. If you think that I'm really that good, then I want you to pay me this salary. You don't have to pay me, but this is the salary I will work for. I said, if it turns out that you feel that my services are such a benefit to you that you're willing to, then I will work for you. But if it's not, then I would rather just go out and figure out, how to work with different people. And that's how I ended up working at the employment agency. So during that time, this is my, what is it? I don't know how they call it here in the United States, but it was my testing period, my trial period. That's the trial period. And during the trial period, the office manager got into an accident and couldn't run the office. And my boss, who had hired me, the owner of the business, because the owner himself hired me, he was on a trip. And he wasn't going to be back in the next 2 months. And I was the only worker available with the bookkeeper. Now I had to have contact with all the company owners. I had to interview all the people looking for jobs. I had to select the candidates to go, all that stuff. While this other girl, she did her bookkeeping, of course. She didn't do any of the things, but I had to run the other things that my boss was doing, the owner was doing, that my boss was doing, that I would normally do. And the son of the owner, he would come and visit me, and he's like, "Are you okay? Are you okay? Do you need me to leave my office to come?" I'm like, "No, no, no. I'll call you if I need you." And he would bring me flowers, and he just wanted me to feel like, somebody is there, because he wasn't part of that office. He had a different office, a different company that he ran. The son of the owner where I was working. So, but he would come in and check with me. So, 2 months went by, 2 or 3 months went by, and I just got better and better and better. And then I had to connect with the company owners, and I developed great relationships with the company owners. And so when my boss came back, because of course they knew the office manager was supposed to be there, which was she was the owner had hired me, but the office manager was in between the owner who hired me and me. And she had gotten into an accident and couldn't come to work, but she was the one who was supposed to run the office. So since she was out of commission, I ended up running it, and I was new. I had just been hired. I had no training. None. And this is where I see God told me to go there. God knew what was going to happen there. God knew that my best opportunity would be there. So I had to drive a little further. I had to spend a little bit more time in traffic. But it was the best opportunity. So, so she was out of commission, and she was out of commission for months because she had gotten into some type of accident, and she was in a cast. She couldn't move. She couldn't do anything. She couldn't come to the office. So here I am, doing all the working and doing everything, being in charge of everything. And I end up hiring somebody else to help, and waiting until the boss would get back to see what was going to be next. So he comes back, and first he meets with all the clients and all these things. He comes, he says hello to us, and he goes meeting the clients. And about 2 days later, he comes back to me and he says, "I need to talk with you." And he says, "You remember that salary that you said that if I'm happy with you, you wanted that salary?" I said, "Yes." He says, "You're going to get it. I want you to stay." And then he tells me how his conversation went with the business owners who I had been dealing with, and how they felt about the people that I had sent them. And they said that they didn't know how I did it, but it was so good. And they just felt very happy that there was this, change. But there was no change. The office manager was out of commission because of the accident. I was new. So I was just trying to do my best to not mess up this guy's company. I didn't want the guy's company to go under while I was running the ship. I was at the helm of the ship, So God was there, and I knew it was God, because he would tell me things. He would tell me that person, he would show me person, he would say this name. I would look for papers. Who am I going to send to this? And all of a sudden I would know, like God would be like a finger pointing, that name, send that one. And I would know to send that one. And it always worked out perfectly. So all his clients, they began to tell him how wonderful they thought I was. And that they didn't really like the one who was the office manager, because the one who was the actual office manager wasn't doing that great of a job. And I'm feeling guilty, because I know what the deal is. I know that I'm getting, extra help from someone. I know that I'm getting help from heaven. They don't know that. They don't know that. I know God is helping me. He's putting thoughts in my mind, putting my brain to think about things that I would not think about because I don't know them. Putting my putting my eyes on things, and I'm like, why am I looking? And I'm trying to move my eyes, and he would put my eyes, and then I'm not, okay, this is God. He's trying to tell me, look at this, pay attention. That's what he's telling me, pay attention. So I knew that I had an unfair advantage with God. And so now I'm feeling guilty because, oh no. So the boss comes back and he's like, he wants me to become the office manager instead of her. And I'm like, wait. There's still other things I want to do. God had already started calling me to go into the mission field, and I was processing through that. So, and I had worked at that company for, I think it was a year, I think it was a year after this whole situation happened. He wanted me to become the office manager of that company because he had seen me work for a whole year, and he's like, no, I need you to be the office manager. But by then God was already telling me, no, he wanted me to go to Bible college. So I knew transition was coming. And I told him, I said, I can't do it. I said, I am getting ready to, God is leading me into going to Bible college, and that's how that ended. But, he equips us to provide the services that he wants us to provide in our own mission. And the mission field is it's not always like going to a place where you're a missionary. Your mission field can be your work, because so many times my workplace has been my mission field. And not that I'm going to preach to people, but sometimes people need advice, they need guidance, they need support, they need encouragement, just as a friend. And there are not many people who can give their colleagues advice that comes from God, that comes from wisdom. Right? And they appreciate it. They do. Right? So I want to share with you the list of all the things. And to me it's a big list, because when the first time I wrote down this list, I was literally shocked, because I hadn't realized how many things I had done because of God. Because of God's direction in my life, because of God's guidance in my life, I did not realize. So let me share with you this list of things that he enabled me to achieve, the services he equipped me to provide, and the various roles he led me to fulfill, both in my private life, having my own business, and as a minister. Right? Here's the list. I was an executive assistant of the year. So I was an executive, and at a certain point I won an award as the executive assistant of the year. These are all things I won because God was with me. Not because I was that intelligent or that I noticed all these things, because sometimes I can be pretty clueless. This is the work of God. I became an assistant office manager. I was an office manager. I was a home business owner, a multilingual translator, a Bible college. Then I went to Bible college and became a Bible college graduate. I became an ordained minister of the gospel. I studied Jewish and ancient studies. God then opened the door for me to go to Israel. So I ended up living in Israel, studying in Israel, and I ended up studying ancient and Jewish studies, by the Bible and archaeology and old ancient languages and that kind of stuff. Anyway, then I was a worship leader for a long time because I played guitar, so I became, and in Bible college, I wanted to prepare myself to become a better praise and worship leader. So then I became a worship leader. Then I became a missionary, because then God called me to become a missionary. Then I was a ministry leader as a missionary. Then I was a Bible studies teacher because I began to teach Bible studies in the different places. A Bible languages instructor, instructing people in Hebrew and in Greek. Then I became a Christian life coach to help people navigate their lives. Just a Christian life coach. I became a ministry mentor as I was training other people to take the place that I would be leaving once my missionary time was done. I needed to have people ready to take in to fill that spot so that their ministries could continue. The local ministries in the different countries could continue with the things that I had taught them. I became a spiritual wisdom advisor and a dream exploration consultant, meaning I would help people in the church understand the dreams that God would give them. And what is God trying to tell them, and help them figure out what they needed to do. And but just a dream, just exploring a dream, because we have to explore dreams with God. We have to connect with God. God has to tell us what He wants us to do. So I never thought I could or would ever do all this when God started calling me. It never occurred to me. This whole list of things, when God started calling me, I never thought I would be able to, I never thought of doing all these things. That, at that time, in those early days, He had also told me that He has someone He wanted me to marry. So my whole life, all these things, all this exciting life is happening. But in the early days, He told me that He had someone for me to marry. He wanted me to marry someone. But this would be after I had done everything He wanted me to do. And I really enjoyed doing everything God wanted me to do. I really did. Life was exciting. It was wonderful. It was challenging. And God was with me, and I could experience His presence. I could nearly feel His presence. So after my time as a missionary, God literally directed me into meeting my husband. Well, my late husband, because he passed away a few years ago. But He directed me into meeting my husband. He would tell me, do this, do that, go there, go here, etc. And then He said, I want you to connect with this person. And He had a particular person. That particular person. Go say hello. Go say hello. And I'm like, I have to go say hello? Why don't you have him come and say hello to me? And he was like, go say hello. I was scared, reluctant, insecure, but I obeyed. This was God. This is the God that I'd been walking with for so many years, 15 years already. So as I got to know this man, this person better, over some time, of course, this person began to feel like a good fit, like a perfect fit. And he thought I was a perfect fit too. And he came with 2 wonderful gifts, 2 wonderful children. And God told me that the man He was going to give me, God gave me a dream, then God gave me a vision, So God told me that the man that I was going to marry would come with 2 children, a boy and a girl. And this guy that God told me to speak with had 2 children. His first wife had passed away and left him with the kids. And so he had a girl and a boy. And I was like, that's the vision He gave me about this man coming out of the water with a girl and a boy in his arms. This man had a daughter and a son from his late wife. So we eventually got married, and we got married when I was 40 and he was 43. And he passed away a few years ago at the age of 66. So, and I was not ready for that. I was not ready for him to leave because we had such a wonderful marriage. And it's not that we never had any challenges. There were times that were challenging, but God was always with us, and God always helped us. And we would always be able to realign. It was beautiful. But God comforted me and gave me strength And this is where we need the comfort of God and the strength of God. Um, and I am so blessed. I feel so blessed that I was married to him. And his children, his two children are now my children. And their children are my grandchildren. And God said he would place me in families. As long as I was single or alone, he would place me in families. And now with my husband passing away, I am still in his family. You know, because the children are my children. And their children are my grandkids. And it's a beautiful thing. And his family is still my family because he's an American, right? I came here and I married him. And his family became my family. And my family is back home in the Caribbean, South America, you know. But his family became my family. So he placed me in family. Whether I was on the mission field or whether I was married, he placed me in family. He was faithful to his word. I am still amazed when I think of all this. And I believe that I am a witness that God can take any average person, someone of no particular importance or background, and turn him or her into a life-changing force for his kingdom. Because I've experienced it. I've seen it. I'm no big deal, really. But when God puts me in a place of ministry, it comes out. And I know it is God. Thanks to Jesus Christ, I enjoy a fulfilled life and a deep, intimate relationship with God in all aspects. I have a relationship with him as my Father. He is my Father. I have an intimate relationship as the Son, him being the Son. He is my Savior. And as him being the Holy Spirit. He is inside of me, giving me God's thoughts and directing me. And this has led me to live a full life of love, hope, divine appointments, opportunity, unusual common sense, and unusual wisdom. He's led me to live a life of success, of victory, of blessing, peace, the peace of walking with God. Oh my goodness, it's amazing. Fulfillment, the sense of being fulfilled, that God knows who you are and he calls you to his purpose because he created you to do this, and now you're doing these things and he's there with you, and it's amazing. It's amazing. He doesn't call us to do things that we can't. He already knew who we were supposed to be because he put us in the womb of our mothers. His spirit is with us. He knows who he created us to be. So he knows what we can and cannot do much better than we know ourselves. And I can testify to that because I ended up doing things that I never thought I could do. Never. And then I realized, and he says, with him, we can do all things. We can do all things through Christ because God is with us. He's giving you the direction. That's what he's doing. So he gives us unusual common sense, uncommon wisdom, success, victory, blessing, peace, fulfillment, and joy. Joy. The joy that fills our lives when we live for God is amazing. And I want to tell you, you can have the same. And it would be my greatest honor to support you in getting there. So connect with me anytime you want. If you have questions, you want to know a little bit more about something I said, leave your questions in the comments below. If you wanted to share something that highlights something that I have said, that you have experienced, that you know. Share your experiences. Let it be a blessing to other people so that other people can see that it is not just me who has these experiences. There are other people, and I know this because I have met many others who have also received direction from God. Write something in the comments so that you can encourage other people so that they see that this is not a story. This is something that other people have experienced, that God does reach other people. Share your story. Let other people know in the comment section. But share, encourage other people. Wouldn't it be wonderful that people could see, hey, there are other people who have it? Because some people think, oh, God doesn't do miracles. Well, yeah, I met a lot of people who God has led in a special, unique way. Not just in the Bible, but he does it today. He does it today. So if you're one of those people, I invite you to write something encouraging in the comments so that other people can know that God still does unusual things today. Okay? To God be all the glory. Thank you for your time. Thank you for listening. And I pray that this has been a blessing to you. If it has, let me know in a comment. Let me know how whatever I have said has blessed you, how it has helped you, how it has helped you rethink things or see things from a different perspective. I don't know. But any way that this has been, if this has been of any help, let me know. Okay? And if there is anything else you want to hear, then also let me know. And I'll be happy to try and make it happen. Okay? God bless you. And until next time. Bye-bye.